What's up guys, JayzTwoCents here, and if you've been following me for any length of time, more than just even a couple of days, you've probably learned by now that I have just as much of a love and passion for automotive racing as I do for custom PCs and technology. How do you put the two together? Well, you build yourself a kick-ass racing cockpit like this to play on your kick-ass gaming PC. It's pretty obvious. Now, what I'm sitting in right here is the Obutto R3volution offered by Main Performance PC. They're based right here in the US, they're made in the US, so that already is a plus as far as I'm concerned, but they're built by racing enthusiasts themselves. The guys who make this literally breathe and live this life. So who else would you want a racing cockpit from than one that's built by racing enthusiasts themselves that also build crazy computers? Now, if you want to know more about the wheel, pedal, and shifter setup, and I have added the hydro brake since the video I'm about to reference, go and check out my video about the Fanatec stuff. The focus of today's video is going to be more so about the frame that I'm sitting in itself. Now, as I already mentioned, this is the Obutto R3volution. This is not the first racing cockpit I've taken a look at on this channel, but I can tell you this definitely steps it up a notch over the GT Omega Arc cockpit that I was using a couple years ago. Now, I also want to lead in with the fact that it does come with an independent triple monitor stand that I'm not using and not showing in this video, but you can see it on the website because I actually do my racing in virtual reality. So I don't need the screens in front of me. I use the HTC Vive HMD, so it allows me to have a virtual reality experience with all of this, which makes it feel like I'm really there, especially when I'm sitting in a racing seat like this. So keep that in mind. There is a monitor stand that I'm not showing here, but what you guys see right here is all built and made in the US. That is a huge thing because most manufacturing doesn't take place in the US anymore. They're using tubular steel construction. The welds on here are gorgeous, and it's got a massive weight capacity. I have no idea what the weight capacity is. Guys, I'm about 260 pounds. Yeah, I'm a fatty, I know. But this thing holds me with no problem whatsoever. And that's obviously due to the tubular steel construction, the amazing welds, and it's all reinforced where it matters. I mean, when I'm sitting here, this thing is not rocking and bending and creaking all over the place. It is solid. It's not going anywhere. Now, starting with the pedal base, it's pretty cool because it's got adjustable angle of attack, so you can change what angle the pedals are at, and it's pre-drilled for all your common types like the Fanatec, obviously, the G27, G25, the Logitech stuff, the Thrustmaster 500 stuff, which is also very popular. So it's literally just a plug and play. You bolt your pedals onto there and you're good to go. You adjust the angle if your pedals are not adjustable. And I chose to leave it on the flattest settings because the Fanatec Club Sport pedals are actually pretty upright already, so I don't want them feeling awkward. What I would have liked, though, would have to have seen some way of hanging the pedals. That way they feel more like a street car. But then again, a lot of race cars have floor-mounted pedals anyway, so this is fine. That was a pretty easy thing to get over. Now, moving up to the base for the steering wheel, it is height adjustable. It's got this giant knob underneath that you can loosen, and you can move the steering wheel closer to you, farther away from you. You can even adjust the angle of the steering wheel. And again, it's pre-drilled for your common steering wheel servos. And you have a little bit of angle adjustment, which is kind of nice. I would have liked to have angled the wheel back just slightly. It's really up and down at the moment. But if I did that, then it puts the wheel a little bit higher because the angle is more of a pivot rather than just a tilt. So we're not going to, so I don't want to raise it up any higher than it is. I'm 6'4". This is a perfect height for me. Some of my other friends who are not quite as tall might find the wheel to be more like right in their face and look like grandma driving to church on Sunday, and we don't want that. So it's perfect where it is for me. Now, something that's really cool that's included with the cockpit is this keyboard and mouse tray. Now, it's on an articulating arm. You can push it away and pull it near you. You could use it technically as a work platform, put your mouse and keyboard on and use it as kind of like a workstation if you wanted to. It's also got this really nice neoprene cut-to-fit pad on top, which acts as a mouse pad as well as a protection, for the surface, and things aren't going to be sliding all over the place and scratching. It's even height adjustable, so you can move it up and down in the mounting arm so you can get it just right. My only problem with this is it's pretty heavy. And because of that and all the different joints that are built into the arm, it's got a bit of play in there, so it can kind of wiggle up and down a little bit. I've actually taken this apart and tightened up the joints as tight as I possibly can. It doesn't really seem to make any improvement because there's just so much torque on this arm when this thing is extended out. I feel like that bearing is wearing a little bit. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend trying to use this as a workstation in lieu of a desk. But the nice thing is it's included. It gives you a place to put your mouse and keyboard, especially when you're, changing between your games and stuff. You're not having to reach down on the floor and whatever else. Now let's go ahead and move on to the seat, because that is, in my opinion, the most important part of any racing cockpit. It doesn't matter how good the wheel mount is, the shifter mount, the pedal mounts. If the seat sucks, it doesn't matter. You're not going to enjoy playing on this thing. Now, the nice thing about the Obutto R3volution seat is not only is it extremely robust and durable, it definitely has a race car feel. It's certainly a bucket. Obviously, it's not a fixed seat. It is an adjustable back, so you can change how upright you are in the seat. If you want a gangster lean, you can do that, but I digress, don't do that. The nice thing is it's made out of fabric. Now, it's got these really nice kind of leatherette, almost carbon fiber looking inserts in there that give it a nice racing feel, but the problem with the other cockpit that I had was it was a leather seat. So sitting in that for any length of time whatsoever meant that I was sweating through my clothes and leaving sweaty butt prints on the seat, which made the next person that would get in after me to want to play go,
"Ew, I'm sitting in Jay's butt sweat." That's just gross.
Yeah, Nick actually said that once. That's okay, I've sat in his butt sweat too. So fabric is obviously breathable, which means you can play in this for a while and get up, and you're not going to leave sweaty prints all over the seat. The padding in here is also firm, but soft enough to where you feel comfortable and not like you're sitting on a rock, but firm enough to where you also feel like you're pretty supported. Now, something to keep in mind, if you've got broad shoulders like me, of course, these shoulder supports on the seat might start to feel a little bit restrictive. But when you got your hands forward and you're on the wheel, your shoulders kind of roll forward a little bit and you fit in there nicely. But if you're a broad-shouldered fella, or you're a bro at the gym and you're constantly doing upper body and shoulders, then you're probably gonna feel like this is a little bit restrictive. Unfortunately, this is the only seat offered, so it's not something you can really change out. And of course, it is on a slider, so you can adjust it forward and back. Now let's move on to the shifter here. This is also the Club Sport shifter from Fanatec. I also have a hydro brake mounted to it, which means I'm constantly yanking and pulling on this thing. You might have noticed though that this is the one mount on this frame that is not a tubular construction. That's because I'm not actually using the mount that came with the Obutto R3volution. This is actually directly off my ARC cockpit. And the nice thing is, the holes actually mounted up perfectly. They lined up perfectly, so I just ran the same bolts through, and I'm using this to mount my shifter. Now, the reason for that is this is what comes with the Obutto R3volution. You can see it's another one of these tubular arms that are welded pieces together, and you got this platform here that you can mount your shifter to. The problem is, because it's round stock, one, it can kind of twist a little bit in the mount. And as I'm pulling on the hydro brake, which is off to the side of where this mounts, it puts side leverage on it, which means it's constantly wanting to turn. Same thing when I'm rowing through the shifters. When I have friends that get on here, I think they forget they're in a racing simulator and they just start to like cram the hell out of this thing. That's the cup holder you guys can hear actually. Yeah, it has a cup holder, pretty neat, right? They just start rowing the hell through the shifter and start slamming it like they're in a real gearbox. I don't understand that. They forget they can just, it's just little switches, guys. You don't have to throw it around. But the hydro brake, that's spring-loaded, so there's a lot of tension on that. The problem with, though, like I said, is this thing wants to move around no matter how much I crank it down, which is really kind of annoying. I could drill a hole through it and do a nut and a bolt that would keep it from moving, but then I lose the quick removability of it. Removability, I don't know if that's a word. The other reason why I'm not using it is because I'm lazy, and it doesn't come with holes drilled for the shifter, which I thought was very odd. Now, this is going to be one of the things that I give it a negative for. It's got pre-drilled holes for the different pedal manufacturers. It's got pre-drilled holes for the different steering wheel base manufacturers. I don't understand why they left out the shifter. That's one of the reasons why I'm using this one here, because the GT Omega has the universal mounting holes on the bottom, and my Fanatec Club Sport shifter mounted right up to it. So when I saw that the holes lined up, we pretty much took the easy way out and just did that. But trust me when I say I'd rather use this one here, so I'm probably going to find a way to mount this and make it more rigid, in the future. But this has been working for me just fine so far. The placement of it is working really well, and I'm happy with that. One thing that's nice to see though is it does have some cable management in mind. You can actually run the cables for the steering wheel right down through the neck on the frame, and they come out the back, and you could just zip tie it neatly like I did and kind of put them out of the way. It would have been nice though to have maybe a cleaner way to bring the cables from the frame to the shifter, especially since the length of the cables often are not long enough to run them and zip tie them along the whole frame like I kind of did with the power cable. But they're kind of off to the side here. It doesn't really matter. And I might explore a cleaner way to do that in the future, but it hasn't bothered me. I haven't kicked it or bumped it on accident, so it's not really an issue. Now this is actually a newer revision than Barnacules. Barnacules has one of these as well. That's why I wanted it, because I saw his in person and I thought this was such a nice and well-built frame. I wanted it. But it turns out his doesn't actually have the pre-drilled holes for the servo base, for the Fanatec and whatnot. Now the Club Sport pedals, I believe, mounted, but the base didn't. So they've made some changes to drilling holes for the base. I just still wish they had done that for the shifter. Anyway, I think you're gonna be hard pressed to find a better racing cockpit, especially for this price. It comes in at about $700, and I know that sounds like a lot of money, but trust me, these things get up into the thousands. So the build quality that you get for this price point, I think it's pretty much unmatched. Anyway, I'm gonna go, guys. Thanks for watching today's video, and if you're a car enthusiast and a PC enthusiast, you should definitely do yourself a favor and consider building something like this. This whole setup, the whole thing, with the steering wheel and everything, can be had for about $2,500. Again, I know that's a lot of money, but that's still so cheap compared to how expensive they can get. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, I will see you in the next one.